Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the MMA on the Island podcast for episode number 15 here on the pod. My name is Joe Frescott, joined alongside Aiden Williams, and it is time to talk fights once again, folks. I know we promised you guys that we wouldn't take another week off, but us being, a little bit of silly geese here, we thought that the fight card we recorded 2 weeks ago, thought this week's fight card to Bobby Green versus Grant Dawson was last weekend. We're a little bit of silly geese. We got a lot going on, so slipped both our minds. So we realized that we already previewed that card. We already did everything in terms of that. So there was really nothing for us to talk about for an episode that would have continued. That would have been filmed and put out last week. So we took another week off, but we're back, and it is time to break down that fight night, which at the Apex, still not a big fan of the Apex, but nonetheless, it was a card that delivered, starting with the second fight on the main card is where we're going to start breaking down everything. And that is Drew Dober, in the wise words of my co-host here, Chad himself, versus Rick Glenn. And Drew Dober
dominated that fight. Ricky Glenn should never even been in that fight, man. From the moment that fight started to when it ended, Dober controlled the pace, even to the point where I don't know if he knocked him down or Ricky Glenn was trying to pull guard or something like that, and then he was yanking on Dober's glove, which is dirty to begin with.
Oh yeah.
But then once they both got back to the feet, Dober finished that fight. And with that fight, folks, for those of you who watched the fight, you probably saw the little graphic on the bottom. Drew Dober actually surpasses Dustin Poirier for the most knockouts in the lightweight division with 9. So shout out to Drew Dober, man. Dude's been in the game for quite some time. And, we had a little bit of a setback with Matt Frevola, but Matt Frevola is a Long Island native. He's a stud. We're looking forward to his fight with Benoit Saint Denis coming in November. But yeah, man, Drew Dober, he always pushes the pace. He always brings the action. And I'm looking forward to him, fighting against dude. I know he just had a daughter. So take some time with the family. That's obviously most important. But no rush for Drew Dober, man. But we want to see you back in there. So we're looking forward to it.
Drew Dober's a stud, man. And at 34 years old, he's somebody who...
Gotta be 35, I think.
Oh, no, 34. But he's somebody that, it's kind of shocking how old he is. It feels like he's just emerging in the sport, although he's been in the organization, and he lost a tough 18 finale back in 2013. It's been a decade of Drew Dober. That's something I simply just can't wrap my head around. But he's somebody who's always good with the power punching, a great southpaw. And Ricky Glenn really had no answer for him.
No.
And when it comes to the future for Drew Dober, man, he's somebody that I like to stay in the mix. I don't know if it's top 15 yet. I mean, you could maybe give him, the loser of the main event of the evening, potentially in lightweight, considering that now he's the 15th ranked guy. But then that would be 2 straight. That would be a loss to a ranked guy, a win against Ricky Glenn, and then another fight against a ranked guy. Yeah, so but he's close.
But he's definitely close. I mean, we'll talk about this obviously more in depth in a little while. But Bobby Green's sitting at 13, and obviously for those who've watched the card last year, Drew Dober put a stop to Bobby Green in the second round. So not to say Drew Dober can't be in that top 15 mix like he was just this past year, but in the beginning of the year. But another fight warrants him that, not Ricky Glenn per se, but we'll see it soon, hopefully.
Yeah, and for Ricky Glenn, I mean, he didn't really show much, so no. I don't even know where we would put him in terms of
Ricky Glenn,
in terms of the lightweight rankings, and where he would go next. But let's move on to 2 guys where I think of a clearer picture of where they go next, and that's a great fight in Moreno versus Buckley. One that Buckley just looked fantastic. Yes, and I think it's very clear. My biggest takeaway, and it was pretty much the consensus, is that 170 is the weight class for Icky Buckley.
Oh, it's undisputed, dude, right? He's 2-0 in the weight class right now. Hopefully he fights again by the end of the year, but if he doesn't, that's okay. Obviously, we'll go back to that first fight he had with Fialho. Oh, not the first fight, but the fight he had with Fialho. It's unfortunate that Andre Fialho has kind of been going on a downward slope. He's lost, I believe, 3 or 4 consecutively. I know he just lost to Tim Means not too long ago, and then prior to that against Buckley. But Buckley, he always knows how to put on a flashy knockout. But this fight, it had nothing to do with that. That was completely separate from what he has done in the past. This fight, he was just a workhorse. He was pushing the pace. He was in Morono's face for 15 minutes straight. And being that, cutting a weight class like that, some guys might be depleted. Some guys might not have the same energy they previously had at a weight class where they're, I guess, more comfortable in. That's not the case with Joaquin Buckley, man. He looks better than ever at 170. And a guy like Morono, who was previously on a 5-fight win streak, he was possibly on the cusp of fighting a top 15 opponent next. But that fight is gonna have to wait because Joaquin Buckley showed that he's next to fight in the top 15, maybe, or against a guy like Renat Fick. I don't know how to pronounce his name correctly, but I'm sure you guys who know who I'm talking about. Renat, the guy who just beat Kevin Lee not too long ago. Maybe they both can fight in the top 15. I know he has a fight next, Renat against somebody else, but Joaquin Buckley, man, he was starting to. No, I think he was actually at one point 4-4 in the UFC or 5-4, which isn't a great record, but winning 2 in a row at a new weight class. This is where he belongs, man, and I'm looking forward to him. Next.
Yeah, Buckley. I mean, he looked really good, and he's definitely not the most technical guy in the world. Like, no. It's a lot of looping punches, and nothing that he throws is really straight 1-2s. But he looked great, and I love when he was mixing in the grappling there. I know his corner was calling for a lot of grappling, especially towards the end of the rounds to kind of bank the rounds for him. But I didn't even think he needed it, as I thought that he just looked better on the feet. Oh yeah, Renat Faka. Yeah,
he's like 21-1 or something.
Yeah, he's a beast. But that would be a great fight at welterweight. But to think that Joaquin Buckley just a year ago was fighting middleweights at 5'8". I mean,
no, he's 5'10". He's not actually 5'8". I mean, Google likes to BS.
Yeah, nah. But I mean, still, that's a small guy for middleweight. I mean,
5'10" is not big at all.
Yeah, for middleweight guys, 185. Those dudes, you got guys at 6'2", 6'3", and he's fighting at at a significant height advantage. But I think now he's leveling the playing field for himself, fighting at 170, making that cut down, looking great while doing it. And he got a clear and decisive victory against Alex Moreno. Yeah, Alex Moreno's a guy he's a tricky out. He's not somebody who should be slept on by any means.
No, I agree. But Moreno was pushing. He's getting up there in age. I think he's not really that old, but he's like 33, 34. Joaquin's still 29, man. So 29 years old in MMA is not old by any means. So this guy has a future. I was about to bring up. Oh, right. One of the scorecards was 30-26. It was 30-27, 30-27, 30-26. I personally thought it was 30-26, especially that third round, man. Joaquin was looking to put it away, and he kept trying to put it away. I guess Moreno showed some grit, or maybe Buckley was trying to put that fight away the entire time. Shout out to Moreno for not getting put away, right? He went out on his shield, I guess. But yeah, Buckley dominated the fight. I don't think anybody expected that fight because you look at the closing odds real quick before we move on to the next fight. Buckley was only favored, I think it was like a -150 to a +180 or vice versa. So a lot of people thought this fight was closer than it actually turned out to be, but it wasn't. So, I'm looking forward to what Buckley has next.
No, that was a good point with that third round. I mean, Moreno was just done.
He was done.
He looked like he did not want to be there. And it was just impressive to me that he even survived that third round, that onslaught. I thought Buckley, when it was like 2 minutes left, and he kind of just had him against the cage, and Moreno didn't even really know where he wasn't even looking at him.
No.
I thought that it was very, very close to being stopped.
I thought so too.
But I think maybe another minute or two of Buckley. I think the fight ended with him on the ground, right? Ground and pound to finish. I'm pretty sure that's where it ended. And I think you give it another minute, and Buckley finds his shots because he got power in his hands. As we've come
this fight, real quick, Joe. This fight proved that stats don't always matter. And I was notorious at times for looking at the stat sheet and be like, oh, this guy had this many more significant strikes, or oh, this guy won the fight, but he had the discrepancy wasn't that far off. But you look at this fight, right? Joaquin had 77 total strikes to Moreno's 54. That's not a large discrepancy. That's not a large difference, right? And then you look at 1 takedown and 2 takedowns. It doesn't look like Buckley won by a whole lot on paper. But if you watch that fight for the 15 minutes that it played out, not at one point was Moreno in control. I think he had a submission attempt in the second, but at no means was Buckley in danger. So that stat sheets don't always mean everything, guys.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that, when it comes to the criteria of judging a fight and looking at a fight, obviously as a judge, you don't have that, but looking at the fight as a fan and trying to do your own honest assessment, it's a great point that it makes there where, the strikes can definitely be deceiving because a lot closer
Absolutely.
on paper than it was when you watch the 15 minutes in the octagon. But let's move on to Joe Pyfer versus Al Hassan. We're gonna go with Al Hassan, Abdul Razak Al Hassan, and Joe Pyfer on his third fight in the UFC. 3 fights, 3 finishes.
Dude, Pfeiffer is a absolute stud. I was when he finished that fight, I was like, I cannot wait for him and Bona Cordova. Not anytime soon because you could have a lot of build up towards that fight. I think personally, if you're like if you're Dana White or a promoter, I think that fight can do wonders in the future. But they're both obviously up and comers right now. But Pfeiffer looks unfreaking touchable right now. I think that first round I don't know if it was DC or one of the other commentators at that point. No, it wasn't DC. I forgot the other guy's name. He didn't look as flashy as he normally looks, but dude, his takedowns were on point. And then he finished what I think it was an head and arm choke or something. Oh, I'm sorry. It was a head and arm choke, right?
Yeah.
Dude. And this was a guy actually, Joaquin, real quick. He beat I don't know how to pronounce his first name. I would have to go to that real quick. 1 second, guys. The guy Pfeiffer fought. Oh, Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Joaquin barely beat him last February. And then just again, that was not really at his natural weight class, but Pfeiffer made easy work of Abdul in that fight, man. He did that to Gerald Meerschaert. I think he finished him within 3 minutes. And Gerald Meerschaert, he's had a couple. He's been around. He's been in the game for a while, and he's had some great wins. But that didn't matter to Pfeiffer. Pfeiffer put an end to that quickly. And I forgot who his first fight was in the UFC. I think that one was right off the Contender Series, so I don't remember the guy's name off the top of my head. But I personally think with how dominant Joe Pfeiffer's been, and he's only 26, 27 years old, so he's pretty young. I think he should fight a top 15 opponent next. With Derek Brunson being out of the mix, you had a couple of guys shoot up from 14 to 15. I think Anthony Hernandez is on that list right now. Or is he at 15, right?
Yep.
Who's at 14? Curtis? Or Curtis is 13?
No, Curtis is 13 and Andre Muniz.
Okay, that's perfect. I think Muniz and Pfeiffer is the perfect matchup because Muniz has lost 2 in a row. I think he's lost to who did he just lose to recently? Brandon Allen.
He lost to Paul Craig most recently,
and then Brandon Allen
right before that.
Yeah, and then before that he beat Uriah Hall. Well, I don't even know if he's still in the UFC anymore. Uriah Hall, is he? I don't think so.
I think he's still on the roster. I think that would be something I would have remembered.
I think in my couple of years of watching fights, pretty frequently, I don't remember watching Uriah Hall fight, but maybe I just missed it. Regardless,
really. I like Uriah Hall.
No, I'm not saying I don't like him. I just don't remember watching him live.
Okay.
But Andre Muniz being on the 2-fight slump, getting finished in both fights. No, he got finished in both fights. First and second round. That's right. I think that would be a perfect matchup for Joe Pfeiffer because Andre Muniz should not be fighting up in the rankings right now. That's evident with his last 2 performances.
Oh, he did retire. Damn.
He did retire?
Almost a year ago, Uriah Hall called it quits.
Yeah, so I thought he was out. But I like that matchup with Joe Pfeiffer, man. Joe Pfeiffer can get right at the bottom of the top 15 right now, 4 fights in, and then he'll work his way up from there. But I'm confident that he would win that fight. I'm not a matchmaker, but it's some food for thought, guys.
I really like that matchup. I mean, I don't think it could work out more perfectly for either guy. I mean, Munoz getting a guy who has a lot of hype behind him, and then in the case of Pfeiffer, you're getting that top 15 shot. And I think that 3 fights into his UFC career is somebody that I think is deserving. I mean, it's every fight that he's been in has been a completely one-sided affair.
Yeah.
And he's proven that he's very well rounded. The grappling looked great against Al Hassan in that fight, and I think that he's somebody that is very much on the rise. So I would be on the lookout, MMA fans, for Joe Pfeiffer in the future. Somebody that can make some noise in the middleweight division. In a middleweight division that's, I think, I think there is some need for some fresh blood in there. I mean, it's been kind of the same guys over and over. Obviously, Strickland shook up the world with his win against Adesanya. But outside of Duplessis, you're talking about Whitaker, Cannonier, Vittori, Costa, the Hermanson, Gaslam. These are all the same name. Paul Craig, even. Although but he's a new to the division, but still a familiar name and a face that we've seen a lot in the MMA world. Curtis on top of that is the icing on the cake there. But so many guys that we've seen a lot and that we've seen in the top 5. We've seen challenge for the title. So I think in this new Sean Strickland era at middleweight, love to see some fresh blood in there. And Joe Pfeiffer would be a great addition to the top 15. And I think that Munoz fight makes all the sense in the world. Absolutely. But next, for the main event that was scheduled for 25 minutes and lasted 24 minutes and 27 seconds, Bobby King Green gets the job
What a
done
stud.
against Grant Dawson. I mean, a guy in Grant Dawson coming in that had all the hype around him. After Dawson's last victory, he was calling for a main event spot. He got it against Bobby Green, and Bobby Green put him away. 1, 2, 3. That was it.
Dude, and you know what? I'm not trying to hop on the Bobby Green fight trade because I'm gonna be honest with you. The first time I actually heard about him was when I think he got caught for PEDs or it was some type of substance he got caught with. I don't know if it was PEDs or not. This was maybe 2 years ago. I never really watched his fights, but after that Grant Dawson fight, I looked at that Dober fight, and he was piecing Dober up badly in that first round. And then he got caught in that second round was a little closer, but then he got caught in the second round. Obviously, he got put to bed. But bro, I don't think, and I'm not just saying this to sound like a casual or whatever. Obviously you got the Max Holloways, the Poiriers in the division as far as best fluid boxers in the UFC. But I would not argue anybody if they said Bobby Green was somewhat in that conversation. And he has such an unorthodox style of fighting. His style of fighting is very unique, right? He's kind of like what Nate Diaz was, but Nate Diaz never really had phenomenal hands like he did. Nate Diaz, what they said, like he never lost a fight, he just ran out of time. Nate Diaz never. That's what they always said about him. But he was never as good of a boxer as Bobby Green was, man. I mean, Bobby Green, he fights with his hands practically at his hips, but that doesn't stop the speed of his punches. That doesn't stop the accuracy of his punches. Bobby Green, man. And at 37 years old, I don't think people understand. At 37 years old, this guy is making a turnaround in his career. Yeah, he beat a washed up Tony, but Tony's a big name, man. And prior to that fight against, Diaz, the one before that, he was ranked number 7 against Michael Chandler. Chandler was 5, he was 7. That loss against Diaz, set him back a little bit. But Tony Ferguson was still a dog, man. He's still a legend in the sport. Unfortunately, he's fighting again in December. I don't know why, but we're not here to talk about that right now. Bobby Green is looking phenomenal. And, Grant Dawson, this is what happens with the guys in the UFC is I think he said something in the post-fight presser, when he was getting interviewed by Anthony Smith and the other two. I forgot the one lady's name. She's been around forever. I forgot their names, guys. Sorry. But he said something like, guys today, they're more like athletes. They're not dogs or something. Like, I don't know if it was dogs he used, but he said they're all athletes. And that's true. Look at a guy like Grant Dawson, right? He's a phenomenal wrestler. He put working against Demir Ismagulov a couple months ago, a guy who was sitting at 12-14, I think the 12th spot or the 14th spot. I think he beat him like 30-26 or something like that. He dominated him, right?
It was one-sided as it gets.
Yeah, exactly. And a guy like, Grant Dawson, everybody, he was going into the fight as a minus 500 favorite. People thought, okay, yeah, Bobby, he beat up a washed up Tony. He's not going to get that. He's not going to put on that same performance again. He didn't need to put on a big performance because he clipped the guy in 33 seconds. And that's what it is, man, is guys like Bobby, like he's right. They don't make them like that anymore. Diaz is out. Masvidal's out. They don't make these dogs like that anymore.
I think it's really like kind of that street fighting mentality.
That street fighting, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's really what we're talking about here. And Bobby Green's somebody that's proving that, and I think that's a great argument there. I mean, that's something that I haven't really given much thought to in the fact that I feel like when the UFC started, and when, it first came into, obviously there were so many things that had to evolve, but I'm talking about past the tournament era, past the Gracie BJJ and these really whack fights with crazy weight discrepancies and all that. When the weight classes started to be regimented and stuff like that, I feel like a majority of the fighters were kind of had that street brawler style. And here today in this modern MMA world, there's the sport has exploded. So many more people training, wanting to become MMA fighters professionally. So people are becoming so much more well-rounded, and you're seeing guys who with crazy wrestling backgrounds. Think of a guy like Bo Nickel, somebody who's coming from a prestigious wrestling background.
You don't get a better background than Bo Nickel
to MMA. So you're seeing a lot of these guys now becoming just athletes coming into the sport rather than just brawlers and tough dudes. But Bobby Green showing that you don't need to be a tremendous athlete. You don't need to have a tremendous wrestling pedigree or tremendous kickboxing background to come in and be a ranked mixed martial arts fighter. Sometimes you just gotta have that dog in you.
Dude, people
gotta have that dog.
He's right. People think that's like an obscure fighting style. It's out of date with, having that Street Fighter, esque type of fighting style. It might look sloppy at times, but Bobby Green showed, man, it's not out of style. And he's looked better than ever, 37 years old. He called out, and I don't even think Joe and I need to do much thinking about the next fight he should have, because he made it. He called it out, and it makes perfect sense. Renato Moicano needs to stop running his mouth. That's not what I'm going to say. Although it would be a good fight, actually, I think, because Renato was at like what? He's ranked 12th or 11th. So
Yeah,
that would
12.
12th. Okay, so it's one step up for Bobby. But him and freaking Dan Hooker, how could you? I don't even have to promote that fight right now. Dan Hooker, he had that war with Jalen Turner. Well, not actually, I wouldn't really consider it a war. It was a war. It was Turner was dominant. He was putting up pace on that fight for the first 5 minutes in the first round, and I would say about halfway or the first minute or two in the second round. But after that, man, it was basically all Dan Hooker. Jalen Turner's eyes almost went black in that second round after he was on that time. Literally, Turner got saved by the bell because, like I said, his eyes were rolling to the back of his head when Hooker put him in that rear naked choke. He got lucky. That fight would have ended there, but Hooker showed he has no quit in him, man. And he's on a 2-fight win streak right now, Hooker. Same thing with Bobby Green. I mean, Hooker beat a guy in Claudio Puelles, who I don't even know. I haven't seen fight since MSG of last year, so I don't know if he's still fighting or he's taking some time off, whatever the case may be. But then to put on a performance like that against Jalen Turner, who a lot of people thought was an up-and-comer, not an up-and-comer, but would have made some movement in that division. And I'm a big Jalen Turner fan, man. I think from the start, he came into that fight 2 pounds overweight, so probably didn't have the best camp. It wasn't like his peak self. And that's fine. He'll get another performance. He's still young, 27, 28 years old. But for Hooker to put a stop to that hype train currently, Hooker still got it in him, man. He's 33, 34 years old. He's a veteran. He's had wars. He's fought guys like Arnold Allen, Dustin Poirier. I mean, the list goes up. Michael Chandler. The list goes on, right? So to have two veterans of the game fight at that Las Vegas card in December would be phenomenal. And Dana White, I pray that if you make that fight, you take Tony and Patty off that main card because that is such a great card right now with the other 4 fights. If you put that fight card on there, maybe at the 5th fight or the first fight of the main event or the second fight, I think that could be in true contention for card of the year, battling with 290. So Dana, please make that fight happen.
I got some bad news, Aiden. I love that fight first and foremost. I think that is the fight to make next. Makes sense for both guys. I know somebody like Hooker maybe would want to fight up in the rankings, but I mean, he's only gotten that win against Jalen Turner after the skid that he went on prior.
Exactly.
So this was like his most, this was his kind of biggest signature win that we've seen most recently.
Yeah, exactly.
But in terms of getting Tony and Patty off the main card, and I don't think that's happening. I think that's a fight that he knows the draw that Tony Ferguson is, and he knows the draw that Patty Pimblett brings just because of the fact that I think he's has that heel, and he's that villain, kind of fighter where it's somebody where people don't like him, so they want to watch him lose.
Dude, I think prior to that Jared Gordon fight, I'd agree with everything you said, and then he lost. Arguably, I think most people would agree he lost to a guy in Jared Gordon, and he was saying that fight wasn't close this and the other, and people just looked at him like he had no idea what the hell was going on. Like he didn't just fight that fight, and people didn't witness him fight. I think after that fight, his stock dropped a little bit, and people weren't too keen on him anymore. But I guess the guy like Tony Ferguson, El Kukui, he's been in the game for so long. I guess that'll probably remain on the main card. But then fine, if that's the case and they have to leave it on the main card, I don't see the purpose in that. Then at least make it the featured prelim. I don't think anybody would argue that. Fight right before the main card, number 9 versus number 13 in the lightweight division. That fight is either going to get finished quick or it's going to be guaranteed fireworks. So either or, make that fight happen in December. And after the performance that Bobby just put on, I think he deserves that fight. Hooker said he's down. Bobby said he's down. They got 9 weeks to prepare. Bobby's probably still in fighting shape, and he just fought freaking 4 days ago. Yeah. So let's make it happen, boys.
Yeah, let's do it. And with that, let's I guess we'll talk a little bit Grant Dawson. Dawson, I mean, we've talked a lot about Bobby Green now, and I think Dawson was somebody who came into this fight, he's still super talented. I mean, only 2 losses his entire career. And he was somebody, and as you mentioned in that fight against Iskamanilov, was just dominant. Like it was really one-sided. His wrestling was fantastic that entire night, but he was somebody that came in on a really big hot streak. It was 3 straight wins, and then a draw for him coming into it. So he's somebody that I don't think should fight too down in the rankings. I don't know who's really kind of knocking on the footstep of the 155 top 15 that he would go against off the top of my head. But I don't think Grant Dawson should stray too far away from the top 15, even a fight, a little bit above, because he was ranked 10 and dropped 5 spots.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that.
And this was something that we talked about before we started recording about how that's kind of ridiculous for Grant Dawson to drop 5 spots. Yeah. It was a 33-second, it was a 33-second knockout. He just got caught clean quick. and that's it.
You
And
look at Renato Moicano's like this is why Renato's at the 12, right? His last victory was last November. He beat a guy like Brad Riddell. Brad Riddell was on a hot streak, but then he got finished against guys like Moicano, guys like Turner. I don't know. I'm not going to go into his history right now, but I don't think beating a guy like Brad Riddell is, warrants you a super high position in the rankings, especially at this point. Prior to that, he lost to RDA, unanimous decision, and then prior to that, he beat a guy like Alexander Hernandez, I think he beat Jim Miller earlier this year, but he's never been a top 15 guy, at least from what I can recall. So I don't think necessarily Moicano's his most recent fight trajectory warrants him a spot above Grant Dawson, because Dawson was freaking 9-0-1 in the UFC, and now we fell 5 spots back. I don't personally agree with it, but then if that was the case, then Bobby Green probably would have had to surpass him at 12. And Bobby Green only has like a 12-9 record in the UFC, so I guess I can understand, but whatever. Point is, Bobby Green's in the rankings, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, but for Dawson, I like him. Maybe the winner of Frivola versus BSD later this year to end the year. I don't think that he should be out of the top 15 just because of one loss. I think that he should, at least although he dropped 5 spots, at least do him the favor and keep him in the top 15 fighting there. And then if he loses that fight, then he drops out, and we talk, less worthy opponents for Grant Dawson. But let's go into some of the headlines, and starting with a fight that's happening in just a few weeks' time and has had the MMA community very much worried about Paulo Costa. It was revealed that he got elbow surgery just 3 weeks ago, and his fight with Khamzat just now 2 weeks away, if I'm not mistaken. So that means he's going to have a month and a week of recovery from an elbow surgery, fighting one of the most dangerous fighters in the entire UFC, one of the best grapplers in the entire UFC. And it's a scary thing to think about. I mean, we don't know the extent of the surgery. It's probably something very minor, just clean up some some scar tissue. And again, I'm not a doctor, just rationalizing, spitballing here. But that you could argue it's gonna be something minor, won't affect them that much, but nonetheless, it's surgery nonetheless. So it's definitely something that's a little worrisome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now I guess he has that in his arsenal of excuses if he loses that fight. Oh, I just got elbow surgery a couple weeks ago. He might not say that, but the fact that it happened, his fans could say something like that. Well, he wasn't at his best, and I think he said something like, "I could be Paulo Costa. I could be Khamzat Chimaev 99 out of 100 times." So I guess this might be the one if he loses, right, Paulo? I don't know, but and I'm not gonna say this takes away from Khamzat if he wins this fight, because a guy like Paulo Costa, excuse me, minus the Marvin Vettori fight that at 205, and then his kind of lack. I mean, he beat Rockhold 30-27 unanimously, but Rockhold was basically a retired fighter at that point. He came back trying to maybe make some noise in that division again, and he obviously fell short. But Paulo didn't even look great in that fight, to be honest with you. So, but prior to that, man, when Paulo was up and coming, he fought Israel Adesanya. He was looking unstoppable. He had a war with Yoel. I don't know if we're gonna get that same Paulo again in December, in a couple weeks from now. And with that elbow surgery, we don't know how fluid his punches are going to be, maybe how powerful they're going to be. And Khamzat, I mean, the guy said he's training 5 times a day, right? So this could be the best Khamzat we've ever seen. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm not even just saying this because of the shoulder surgery, but it ignited what I'm about to say. I think Khamzat's probably going to put this fight away in the first or second round.
That's not something that I think is too far from the reality here. I think I think this fight's gonna be closer than people think. I think Costa has the potential to hurt Khamzat on the feet, but if Khamzat's able to get at his legs and take him down, I don't really know what Costa's gonna do there, because I mean, Costa hasn't fought in forever, so I mean, going back to the brain bank of thinking of him and his previous fights and his grappling, I can't really even put a name to a fight or a memory of any sort of him grappling. So I'm really not sure how he's gonna deal with that pressure that Khamzat brings. But that's elbow surgery, built-in excuse.
Exactly.
We'll see.
Yep.
But Conor McGregor is in USADA, folks. He stopped juicing.
He
put the juice down or at least
I don't know
Uncle
if
Dana
I don't know if Dana
is slipping
thinks,
them under the cracks.
dude. I don't know if Dana thinks like his fan, like the UFC fans are idiots, but yeah, Connor has had all this time. This fight was supposed to happen right when the Ultimate Fighter finale happened, which was UFC 292. So I think like August 19th that fight card happened. So
Yep,
this fight was supposed to happen what
in the
at this
summer.
point a couple months ago, and it's obviously not happening because the last main event of the year has already the last pay-per-view card has already been booked. So this fight is going to happen at least 6 months after it was supposed to. What do people like? What do people think is the reason? Obviously, Connor has been juicing. He looks much better now. He's getting back to his fighter self. But he's had all the time to piss away Lord knows what in his system. I mean, this guy could be taking. I don't even know the drugs, man. I'm not a scientist or anything
Oh
like that.
my
So
goodness.
I don't know. I don't know what he's taking. But it was evident that Connor was obviously on something, and he
Yeah.
needed this time to get it out of his system. And actually, I don't even think Connor officially. I think he submitted the paperwork, but I don't think he actually started testing for USADA yet. So again, uh, it's Conor McGregor, so the guy could do what he wants, right? He'll probably be the biggest name of all time, right? And it's crazy because he's only when you think about it, he's only had 14 fights in the UFC. He's had a 10-4 record. It should be 10-3-1 or 10-3 in a no contest against that second Poirier fight, in my opinion. But he's only had 14 fights. That's as many fights as Justin Gaethje has. And Justin Gaethje, my math was way off. I'm sorry. That's 12-14. Close enough, right? And Justin Gaethje is a big name, but he'll never have the name Conor McGregor has had. And McGregor's been in the organization for 10 years and only 14 fights. That's what, averaging a fight and a half a year. I don't know. He gets away with so much, and I love Connor because of his personality and all that. But I mean, at this point, it's blatantly obvious that he's finessing, and I don't think it's right, man. Because Chandler's what pushing 38 years old. Granted, he's explosive, fireworks, and all that. But Father Time is knocking on the door, Chandler. You're 38. You're not going to be the same as you were most likely when you fought Dan Hooker 3 years ago. So I don't know, man. Yeah, we're all excited to see this fight. Don't get me wrong, but the more time that passes, I feel like the less of a buildup it's going to have, in my opinion, because these guys are. This fight is happening so much after it was supposed to. Again, they're both big names, but it doesn't do it for me.
No, I mean I understand completely. I mean Connor, it's the privilege, I think
Exactly.
he's somebody that he's gonna get that Dana White privilege any day of the week because he's one of the pioneers and guys that put the UFC on the map and made it as big as it is today. I mean, without Connor, we're talking about a sport that may not have reached these heights that it has, that may not have been able to be the first sport that came back during COVID and have all these milestones that they've reached thus far. I'm not saying that the UFC would not be a thing. UFC is, would be around with or without Connor, but in terms of popularity, there is no doubting that this man has made the company billions. And so I mean, if you're talking about Connor, is it unfair that he's getting into USADA pool now and is very clearly was on some sort of steroids, especially because of the injury and his recovery from that. That was a big thing. I remember hearing some doctors saying that that it was that because of that surgery that he had to get and getting that rod in his leg, that it was something that was almost would make the recovery expedite it, make it a lot easier for him. And obviously with the amount of money he has access to these things. So, I mean, it only makes sense. But it's going to be unfair for Chandler, but I don't think Chandler really cares. I don't think Chandler cares the fact that Connor's been juicing. I mean, Chandler's obviously a freak athlete in his own right. And he's just wants that red panty night. So I think that he's going to take it any means necessary, but hopefully they're back. Hopefully we can see that fight, come early next year. I know Volk is targeting that first pay-per-view in January. So maybe February, maybe March for Connor and Chandler. But if Connor has something else going on and there's more delays, I mean, you gotta start thinking for Michael Chandler to start moving on. And that was a point that your boy Chad Dober brought up. Dober was saying that if Chandler wants a tune-up fight for
He's not gonna take that risk.
with a heavy hitting southpaw before Connor to hit his line, but Chandler not gonna risk that after everything that he's gone through and all the waiting that he's had to do for that big payday.
Yeah, Dober's not even ranked, and Dober, in my opinion, very well has a chance of spark. I'm not saying he would definitely win the fight, but I think he has a chance to knock Michael Chandler out.
Oh yeah,
So if he loses that fight, then if Michael Chandler lost that fight, that build up to that fight would just plummet. Nobody, I don't think it would get half as much attraction if he fought Dober and lost.
Yeah, no, I think Chandler's stock, I don't think it could really get higher at this point without a significant amount of risk being taken by taking another fight. So I think that he needs to stick with where he's at and just, hope that Conor can get his act together and put a fight camp together and not juice.
Yeah.
So next, let's go quickly through here. Alistair Overeem announced his retirement from all combat sports. He gave kickboxing a shot after retiring from the UFC a few years ago. That did not come with great results. So now he is retiring from all combat sports and is pursuing Dutch politics. Good for Alistair. I love Alistair Overeem. Overeem's one of my guys that, I really made me fall in love with the sport. I loved his style. And he was just somebody that always just looked so menacing because he just looked so jacked. Somebody who is, speaking of the juice, definitely on the juice.
Oh.
If you ever see the comparative pictures to when he first started fighting in combat sports and was kickboxing compared to when he was in the UFC and was a UFC heavyweight in his prime, fighting guys like Brock Lesnar before the USADA days, he was a sight to behold. That is a man that was absolutely ginormous. But he was in some great wars with somebody who I feel, was one of those guys that, that you would think at one point in their career would have held the strap, never did, came close on numerous occasions. I think he fought for the belt. Twice. I know at least, yeah, it was twice. Yeah, that's what I thought. But it's just a great fighter, and it's good to see him now retire from all combat sports. I think he's like 42, 43 at this point.
43.
43. So it's somebody that, it's 43. It's time. It's time to put away gloves and pursuing politics. Good for you. Good for you, Alistair. Wishing you all the best in those endeavors. But moving on, Aiden's boy, Mateusz Gamrot, is going to be your backup for UFC 294. In the off chance that Islam and Oliveira have both guys with have had some
honestly, I wouldn't be
weight troubles
opposed.
in the past. So
I'm not completely opposed. I'm not wishing Charles, and I'm going to say why I'm not opposed in a second. I hope Charles makes the weight, right? Although I still think we're going to get the same result as we got last October. I hope Charles makes the weight. But in case he has a, the same thing turns out that happened when he fought Gaethje last year, and he misses weight, and Gamrot fights Islam, and Gamrot gets sparked in the first or second round. I really hope that happens, and it's nothing against Mateusz Gamrot because I don't know anything about the guy or whatever, so I have nothing to personally hate him for. But it's the fact that this guy is, what is he right now? Probably 5th or 6th because of that fluke incident with, literally, Rafael Fiziev is not projected to fight until beginning of 25. So he basically already declared to not fight at all next year. And that is the worst time to happen because the guy's 30 years old. He's so explosive. He's so dominant. He's not going to probably be as explosive as he is now when he returns. But I could be wrong, man. I'm not officially ruling him out, but it's hard when you come back from an ACL injury and something like that because you see happen in professional sports, basketball. It's very hard. Look at Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is my favorite football player. That's a different subject. But, Nick Chubb's it's not even guaranteed that he'll play in the opening week of next year. And I think we're barely at a quarter way of this NFL season already. Yep. So it's tough, man. I'm wishing Rafael the best. But the fact that Mateusz, we had a split decision win against Jalen Turner, and I've mentioned this before. I'm not saying this because I like Turner. I honestly think he lost the fight. Just because you hug somebody or you're behind them on the mat, you're not doing anything with them. You might be able to hold them there, but you're not doing anything with that. Doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, warrant you a dominant or a winning round if that's all you're doing in that round. If somebody, in my opinion, if a fighter is on the feet and he lands way better punches for a minute and a half, and then he gets taken down and ridden for 3.5 minutes, I would still give it to the fighter who was piecing him up for a minute and a half because you're not doing any damage with being behind somebody for 3 minutes. So, he had that win, and then he had that, I guess, injury win against Fiziev, and now he's becoming the backup fighter. It makes sense, though, because what are you going to have? Michael Chandler's obviously not going to do it. And Gaethje, it'd be stupid for Gaethje to do it. He's not going to. Granted, I think after this fight, he'll probably fight for the belt next. But it'd be stupid for him to make this drastic weight cut right now on short notice to most likely not even fight. So I could understand why it is Gamrot, but I just simply on a rankings, ranking standpoint. But I don't think Mateusz Gamrot because of how he's had his fights, should be the backup fighter. I know that contradicts itself because I just said, oh, the ranking, this, that. And from a fighter and his skill set, I think he'd get torched by both guys. So that's it.
Yeah, I think, yeah, as Ian said, Gamrot definitely the guy that
He's
makes
6,
the
right,
most
Gamrot?
sense there. He's at 6 right now. And all the guys above him, I mean, maybe Dariush, but
Nah, Darius just got pieced
yeah,
up.
but Dariush just lost. So for him to be a backup wouldn't make sense. And then for all the other guys, they either got, their Chandler waiting for his fight or Poirier and Gaethje guys that are too big names to be a backup and go through that whole process of a fight camp and a weight cut just to not fight at all. You don't see those kind of guys doing such a thing. But I think that I'm praying, hoping that this main event does not have any issues with it, because I think as much as Dana wants to see Gamrot get pieced up by either of these guys, I just don't want to see this fight fall out, because do I think that it goes any other way than it did last time? It's hard for me to believe that it does, but at the same time, I mean, Oliveira has proven, myself and the entire MMA community wrong time and time again. During his title reign, everyone thought, "Oh, this is the fight. No, this is the fight. No, this is the fight," and he just continued to just prove that he's somebody that can never be counted out. So cannot count out Charles, and I cannot wait for UFC 294.
Speaking of UFC, real
yeah,
quick, I know we were just talking about the rankings.
go for
I'm
it.
looking at Armand Tsyurkin right now. This article just came out October 7th, so literally this past Saturday. He is rumored to be fighting Beneil Dariush at UFC 296. Yes. This card could be one of the greatest cards to date. If you add that card to it, it'll probably be a prelim fight because I think the main card is already officially booked, whatever. You add Dariush and Armand, the 4 and the 8 ranked guy. And then on top of that, you add Green and Hooker, the 9 and the 13th ranked guy for the last 2 prelim fights. Dude, wow. I mean, come on. That's a perfect way to get into that main event card.
Wow.
I'm telling you, if those fights are both booked, I think 296 could easily surpass 290 for the card of the year.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to see what happens with those fights, but
of course,
but
on paper though,
that would be great. That would be great. And Armand, somebody who absolutely is deserving of getting a fight, up and above in the rankings. Yes. He's somebody that's been, disrespected in terms of his previous fights for too long. So let's put a stop to that. And I think that once that fight is, officially booked, that would do it. But let's go into, before we go into some UFC matchups that just got announced recently, and one of them that is so scary to me, as a big fan of one of these fighters. Blonde Brunson, he was guess who that eluded me last week, and he is no longer a UFC fighter, now in the PFL.
So he has a fight
He is in the PFL, and he got his fight booked pretty much immediately since he was announced he was in the PFL against Ray Cooper III. Ray Cooper III, 25-8-1. I've never watched the man fight. He won his last fight in over a year ago now, July 1st, 2022. He beat Brett Cooper via KO TKO. Only took him 24 seconds in that one. But not somebody I'm too familiar with, a Hawaiian native, but very familiar with Derek Brunson, and excited to see him get back in there on November 24th. I mean, he's coming off back-to-back losses, back-to-back stoppages from Duplessis and Cannonier. But we've seen these guys go over to different organizations, and it's been a mixed bag. But I feel like a vast majority of it has not been great. I mean, I don't have like a specific records to go on or anything like that, but I feel like every time you see these fighters, leave the UFC, especially on the tail end of their career, and go somewhere else, it usually doesn't work out very well. But he's fighting a guy who hasn't fought in a long time. Brunson's been way more active than he has. So hoping that Brunson is able to get the job done on the 24th and be, one of the UFC fighters that doesn't get completely starched after leaving the organization.
No, but Brunson is pushing 40, 41 years old. So he's not young by any means. And I think I'm trying to click on it right now, but I'm struggling. I think the guy, Ray Cooper, when you guys go to the fighters page on ESPN, right? And you see them holding the belt, obviously that indicates they were champion. But obviously PFL is different than the UFC because they get a new champion every year, or it could be the reigning champion, but they have the tournament, right? So that tournament dictates who will be the champion, obviously. So it reset, like I said, it resets again every year. But this guy Ray Cooper, his profile picture, he has a picture of the belt on him. So I don't know. I would assume that means he won the belt last year. So if Brunson, maybe the year prior, I'm not too sure.
So
But
it was just to confirm, it was 2019 when he won the belt.
oh,
And
mine.
in his title reign, this is a nice bit. So he was in the PFL playoffs, and for his second round matchup, it was against Chris Curtis. And he beat Chris Curtis via KO in round 2 in October 2019 19, and then later that December on New Year's Eve he won against David Machad.
Okay.
So I mean, and he's a two-time champion rather. We're learning things here today, folks. He won in 2021 as well.
Okay, all right.
Against Magomed Kurmov. Magomed.
Yeah,
That's a great name. Again, the guys that we're not too
from the
familiar with.
offs.
Our bag doesn't go that. We know MMA. Our bag does not go that deep.
But we were talking before about Joaquin Buckley, being a big guy for his weight class. This on ESPN it says this guy Ray Cooper is 5'7". If he's 5'7" fighting at 205,
it says 5'9" on Sherdog. So
okay,
I mean, it's
5'9",
so he's around, somewhere around there. That's a small dude.
That is he's big horizontally.
Oh well, I mean, a small dude in terms of height for the weight class. And Brunson's pretty tall, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure Brunson's 6'1",
185.
Yeah.
That's a normal.
Yeah. So that's
Well, this guy's young, Ray Cooper. He's only 30. All right. So Brunson's 11 years his senior. It's we'll see what happens. Yeah. I think Ray Cooper's probably gonna win the fight. Even though I don't know a thing about him. It's hard though because Brunson, dude, his last fight. He fought Duplessis, and I always think that fight happened in November, last Madison Square Garden. But that fight happened in March. All right, so he already fought this year. We'll see, though. And it's nothing against Brunson, but when you fight a guy 11 years younger than you, chances are, man, especially being that old, you're not going to win, right? And this guy's already shown his dominance in the PFL. The only time I could think of when he was about to win was, obviously Glover Teixeira and Yuri Prochazka won last June. Glover was a couple minutes away from defending his championship belt. That didn't happen, but it is what it is.
Yeah, so we're gonna move on from the PFL, talk some UFC matchups here. Ricky Simone versus Mario Batista. That is a fight night happening this January. I'm a big fan of Ricky Simone. He's a guy who's been in an organization for a young guy. I feel like he's been in the UFC for quite some time. The number 12 ranked bantamweight. He's coming off that loss against Song Yadong, but I mean, you can't really give him any slack for losing to that
who's fighting? I'm sorry.
Animal. Ricky Simone versus Mario Batista.
Okay.
And I like that fight. Coming off of before that loss and that stoppage against Yadong back in April in that 5-round fight where Yadong just looked fantastic. Simone was on quite the win streak. If I'm not mistaken, it was 4 straight. Including Long Island's own. Holy smokes, I can't get that S out. Brian Callagher. But Ricky Simone, I think somebody who still has a lot of pop, and I think he's somebody who at bantamweight is still could make some noise and against a tough opponent in Batista. But then Arnold Allen, this is another great fight. Was matchmade, and I think it is for this November. I gotta look.
Wait, didn't Batista just fight Damon Blackshear, or was that somebody else? Damon Blackshear, because when Cody Garbrandt pulled out.
You might be right.
And some people thought Blackshear won that fight, so he's getting it right. Let me see.
But I'll go into Arnold Allen right now. Allen, the number 4th ranked featherweight.
Yeah, he did fight.
Getting a guy in the number 9 ranked Movsar.
That fight's happening officially?
That fight was officially booked.
Okay.
For I think November. I think it's coming up.
No way.
Against the undefeated Ivov. That's a fight that's
Imavov or Evlov?
Evlov.
Oh, I'm sorry. You said Imavov. I'm like, that's
no. Evlov. I mean, sorry. All these.
No. I wasn't being big.
These Europeans, I'll say. I won't specify because they're all over the map. You got. I won't just say Russian or anything like that because these dudes are all over the place.
They're from Avestan.
Yeah, they're from one of the stands all over the map. They got some fun names there. Oh yeah, he's brolic,
dude. Oh my.
And he absolutely dominated.
And he was a prior
Diego Lopez, and did he?
Yeah,
really.
I don't know how this guy made 35, but man, I'll talk to him.
Yeah, literally. But I mean, against a guy in Arnold Allen, that's going to be a fight that I got bookmarked. I'm hoping that.
When is that fight happening?
See, this is the one I did not write down, so I don't know off the top of my head.
I'll look it up.
But I hope that it is. I hope that I hope that it's a headliner for a
It
fight
might be
night.
happening next year. It says it's in the works for 297.
Oh, okay, 297. All right. I thought it was officially booked from what I read, but
That's a great card.
I'm a silly goose. So that fight could be even a co-main or
That's perfect.
at least on the main card like for that Volk
If Volk beats
versus
Ilya,
Topuria.
if Volk beats
Yeah.
Ilya and Moscar beats Allen, that he already has his next opponent lined up.
That would be great.
So that would actually work out.
That would be great, and that would be a huge step up for Evolov. You know, you get a guy in Arlen Allen at number 4 and then right to the title, but that's kind of where featherweight's at right now. None of these guys
Holloway's not fighting for the belt again. We discussed this.
in the top 5 are getting that belt, as we talked about, outside of Topuria. But then for the one that I've been dreading, stepping up on short notice, less than a month's notice, or I think exactly a month when it was announced. But Derek Lewis stepping in on short notice against Jilton Almeida with Curtis Blades out due to injury, November 4th. That's not going to go well.
Well, I'm not gonna say that, right? Because the odds between
I don't know, Aiden. I don't know.
No. And here's the thing, right? I'm trying to be somewhat.
I appreciate the optimism, but I don't know, Aiden.
I know it's tough.
Almeida's an animal. He's scary man.
Almeida isn't De Lima, right? But how sick would it be for Lewis to come in and knock off 2 Brazilians?
Another flying knee.
Another flying knee, right? No, but we all love Derek Lewis, man. But he's another one. He's 39 years old, and I'm not saying that win against De Lima was a fluke, but because Lewis has beaten great guys before in Curtis Blades, and I'm not saying Curtis Blades is great, but he's beaten Curtis Blades. Why am I drawing a blank to who else he's beaten? Jesus Lord! Oh, he's beaten Volkov. He's beaten a bunch of other guys. I'm not gonna list all his wins, but he's beaten good guys, and I don't think Lewis is necessarily the best replacement. I'm sure you could have found somebody better, and you could have probably found Volkov, although Volkov should, I think, fight in the top 5 soon. I think he's sitting at 6. So I guess that makes sense. But no, the only reason I could see this fight happening, in my opinion, is because, Derek Lewis, I don't know why, but he signed an 8-fight extension with the UFC at 38 years old. I mean, so you're already saying this guy's going to fight. I mean, he can retire, but he's on contract, able to fight. Let's say he fights twice a year on average. He's going to fight every year for the next 4 years. So he's going to be fighting the UFC till he's 42, 43 years old. I don't know, man. Yeah. I don't know. But if he can somehow spark Jailton, because he's not winning by decision. If he could somehow spark Jailton Almeida, I mean, dude, I don't know what to say at that point, because Almeida's finished all his fights. I think he had 1 fight finished in the second round.
Yeah. But 5-0 in the UFC, and every
6-0 actually.
6-0, really?
Yeah.
But he's looked dominant in every single one of his fights. It's literally has not been close. We were talking about him after his last win against Rosenstruck, fighting really up in the rankings, and I think Blades was one of the names we threw out there, and I ended up getting booked, and I loved that fight. I think I probably would have handled it. But Blade, somebody who's pretty good grappler, so I think that would have made for an interesting matchup. But for Derek Lewis to just have a puncher's chance now at this point.
I wonder what the opening odds are for the fight.
Oh, I don't even want to know. It's going to be bad. But yeah, like you said, Derek Lewis 8-fight contract. I don't think that he honors all 8 fights. I don't think it's literally humanly possible. I think it's probably something to do with the contracts.
Okay, -700 to +525 on fight odds.
Yeah, that makes.
So we're talking Strickland Adesanya odds here, folks. So it's not improbable, but I wouldn't say Strickland had a fighter's chance going into the fight. He just had to, I guess he had to compromise Adesanya, and he did. I'm not going to sit here and say that Lewis is going to compromise Almeida's, gifts or abilities for 15 minutes. He's gonna have to knock him out, but we'll see, man.
Yeah, I mean,
he beat Francis Ngannou by decision, which that was not to say a fluke, but that took everybody by surprise, and that happened a couple years back. So
yeah, and that was a fight that I think
longer than that.
What were there, like 20 punches thrown between them, or 20 punches landed between them, I should say. Yeah, that was a rough fight, but Derek Lewis has had some premier wins in his career, so. As a Derek Lewis stan, I don't know. I think I am writing him off. But let's go into far from unanimous now. 2 questions here today, and we're going to touch on a topic we were discussed on. But we'll get right into it. Aiden, how worried are you about Paulo Costa's elbow versus Hamzat, especially when you consider the grappling advantage that Hamzat is already seemingly has?
I am worried. I don't think that would have made a big difference in the outcome. I still think Khamzat was going to win this fight regardless. But this is, and like Joe mentioned earlier, this is a built-in excuse Paulo has now with the elbow surgery. And like Joe mentioned, it's only 5 weeks. That's not a lot of time to recover from an elbow injury. And obviously, Khamzat knows that he had the surgery, so he might try and target that. I mean, you can't really target an elbow, but if you get down to the floor, if you get down on the mat, it's going to be a little bit harder for, in my opinion, for Costa to stand up or just get out of an unfavorable situation. So I think that, in my opinion, it's going to affect Paulo, obviously, even if he said it doesn't. I don't think that's going to change the outcome of the fight. I still think Khamzat's going to get a first or second round finish, but it is a built-in excuse, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. And I think one thing that I'm worried about outside of the takedown defense and the grappling department as well is kind of that punching power. I think the biggest advantage that Costa has in this fight is he has some of the heaviest hands, if not the heaviest hands at middleweight. And he's somebody that if he touches Hamzat's chin, could pose some issues for Hamzat, could find a finish. If he's able to land a left or a right, but with one of those elbows compromised, you'd have to imagine it's going to hurt the punching power a little bit, hurt the speed a little bit as well. And Costa's not somebody who's throwing punches, quick by any means. That's, he's a lot of looping punches, and they're not coming in very fast. So he just has to land clean. And, that's just another factor going against Costa in this fight. So I'm really worried for Paulo. I think that, this is something that I'm hoping that it's something minor. And as we discussed earlier, we don't know, obviously he's not going to reveal what kind of procedure he got done and how serious it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd have to imagine if he's making it public that he's not too worried about it. And I've seen clips of him throwing, after the surgery, and it looks good. It looks good, but you'd have to see how it looks on fight night. And, and in a 15-minute war with Hamzat, because, if it's going to go 50 minutes, it's going to be a war. There's not going to be. Hamzat has an incredible gas tank, even though we saw him slow down and get hurt against Gilbert. He's still somebody that, will push the pace for 15 straight. So I'm hoping that it doesn't impact the fight too much, because I'm really looking forward to it. But Costa's elbow, definitely a cause for concern. But let's move on to our second question. And this comes from an interview with MMA Junkie. Shout out them. They're great social media page and great, news outlet for everything MMA. But they interviewed Aiden's favorite fighter in the world, Belal Muhammad, and they were talking about a hypothetical fight against Kamaru Usman for Muhammad next. And Belal said plainly, he said that unless I'm getting paid championship money for that fight, it does not make sense for me.
As much as I dislike Belal, I will agree with him.
Yeah,
I'll agree with him there.
there you go.
I don't like Belal as a fighter, but you can't deny his current resume, right? He's beaten guys like Wonder Boy, and Wonder Boy is already saying if he beats a guy like Shavkat, who's sitting at, I think, number 6, he holds deserved a title shot. So he's beaten, and if he gets it a third shot and Belal hasn't got one, that's kind of messed up, right?
Yeah.
Even though I don't like Belal, I'm gonna be as unbiased possible. I'm gonna be as unbiased as I can be for the next 60 seconds. So bear with me, guys. Belal's beaten what? He beat a compromised Gilbert Burns. I don't want to, I like Gilbert Burns, so I'm not gonna, be biased and be, oh well, he only beat him because of the shoulder injury. Regardless, he beat him. He beat him there. I think, who did he beat? Oh, he beat Sean Brady, who he actually ended his undefeated record, right? Now he's 15-1, and he hasn't fought in over a year. I mean, he's supposed to fight Gastelum in December, but he's pulled out of a couple fights already, so I don't even know if that's going to happen. But he's beaten Brady, he's beaten Burns, he's beaten Luque. Luque beat him as well, so maybe that shows you what happened down the road. But he's beaten Luque, he's beaten Shavkat. He's beaten Wonder Boy Thompson. He's beaten these guys who were competitors, and a lot of them already contended for the belt. So if he fights Kamaru Usman and loses that fight, that's just something Dana could say, because Dana doesn't want him to fight for the belt, right? We all know this already. He's trying to have him fight everybody except the champion. If he fights Kamaru and loses that fight, then why would he fight for the belt? He's fighting for championship on a loss. Like, his last fight being a loss, why would he fight for the belt? It doesn't make sense unless you were the current the previous champion and you're getting a rematch. That obviously isn't the case for Belal. So if he fights Kamaru, he should be getting a hefty. If he fights Kamaru, he should be getting a hefty check. But that also comes into play. That also, is based off of how well can he promote the fight. Belal can't promote jack shit, and I know that's not good vocabulary, but it's facts. He hasn't been able to promote anything, and he's not an exciting fighter. So I don't know what he's gonna have to do to promote this fight, but he's gonna have to figure something out below. Hire a PR team, hire something, hire a better team, but you need somebody to properly advise you on how to promote yourself. And what you've been doing now is the reason you haven't fought for the belt yet. So Belal, figure it out, man. But if you decide to fight Kamaru and you get the hefty check, proud to you. He also said that he was going to go up and fight. He would go up and fight Strickland for the 185 belt. I don't know where you're pulling that from, buddy. If you're not fighting for the belt in your own weight class, where the hell do you get the idea that you're going to go up to 185 in a division that are, that could Paulo Costa, not Paulo Costa, comes out if he beats Costa, pretty decisively or pretty early on. He might fight for the belt. He might leap all these guys. Yep. Duplessis should fight for the belt next. Yep. So you already have a couple guys who are lined to fight Strickland next. If it is Adesanya, it's Adesanya. I don't think a lot of us agree with that, but if it is, it is. So you would be on a long list of guys waiting to fight for the belt. You should be fighting for the belt now, and I love Colby, but it should be you fighting Leon. I'll give you that. But if you go up to fight Strickland and you lose, right? You're not going to fight for the belt at 170 after you just lost the championship fight below. So if Kamaru's the next fight, I hope he does get his bag because I don't know him personally. I just think he's an extremely boring fighter and he cries too much. But other than that, man,
absolutely, he's a whiner to say the least.
He's a whiner. He doesn't cry, but he's a whiner. And he brings it on himself.
Yeah, but I mean, when thinking about should Belal take this fight against Usman, after he's on an 8-fight win streak, and I think that the logical thing for him would just be to wait. But at the same time, part of me is saying that he should take this fight, and here's my logic here. You're looking at Belal Muhammad, right? Obviously, his biggest win against Gilbert Burns that happened back in May. But there's an asterisk there. Burns fought, I think, what was it, 3 times?
Twice. He fought Neil Magny, and then he fought Masvidal. And then not even a month later, he fought.
Yeah.
What's his face?
So it was like I think it was
3 fights in 5 months.
3 fights in 5 months. Yeah, that's
so
insane. That's an insane thing. And so taking a fight less than a month notice against a guy like Belal Muhammad, who's obviously extremely talented.
He had time off. That he had his fight before that was in October. So he had 5 months to recover and all that.
Yeah, so I mean, so all of his, so that win, and that win against his highest ranked opponent and a guy at Gilbert Burns who was, I think top 3 at that time, now ranked at 5. You could say that's enough to get him a title shot, especially with the 8-fight win streak. But I mean, in a fight against Kamaru Usman, I think it would be undeniable, and I think Belal has to look, take a step back and look at the bigger picture right now. Obviously, you're not a company fan favorite. You're not somebody who has, a tremendous personality where people really want to watch you fight. Your fighting style is obviously, as Anna mentioned, something where people are not a big fan of it. They're not gravitating towards you. But if people aren't going to skip out on the bar on a Saturday night. You know what? I would get some drinks, but Belal's fighting. Let me just chill at the crib instead. That doesn't happen with Belal Muhammad. Exactly. But if you could get a win against somebody like Kamaru Usman, a former champion who had a pretty dominant title reign, and I would say one of the best welterweights in his prime of all time, I think that's just undeniable. It's undeniable. You get your shot. You get your shot, and you get that notoriety from a win against a guy like Kamaru Usman, who has the name value, who has the fanfare, who's somebody who's in the past had some, they call him snoozman and stuff like that. So his fight style, some people have had issues with in the past, but you can't deny that.
Beautiful knockouts.
He was a dominant champion and had an incredible reign with some signature moments and knockouts. Belal Muhammad, you're waiting for your signature moment. This win, a win against Kamaru Usman, could be that moment for you. So in the grand scheme of things, you probably should get the shot next. But I don't hate a fight against Kamaru Usman. Maybe you have to take that fight against Kamaru Usman and find a way to get that victory. And whether it's a boring victory or a dominant victory, either way, you gotta sell the fight. And I think that if he's able to do that, get back in the octagon, get a win against Usman, and sell that his main event and championship fight against Edwards or Colby, it would do him an incredible service for the future of his career. Because I think right now, just waiting on the sidelines, it's not doing him any favors in terms of getting him closer to a title shot. And I know you're risking a lot against a fight
He's
in Kamaru.
risking more than I think you're giving him than you're admitting right now. If he loses a fight
No,
to
I
you,
understand.
we both,
I
and for those of
understand the
you who follow the
gravity of it.
podcast for 15 weeks, you guys know how much Joe and I do not like Bilal.
Yeah.
But I'm being very unbiased right now. If he fights Kamaru and loses, Kamaru is obviously going to be ahead of him. And I mean, a trilogy with Colby would be if Colby. This is all. I'm not saying Colby's going to win, but if he beats, because the trilogy with Edwards already happened. I don't know if they're going to see a quadrilogy or whatever, however you call it. If Kamaru beats Bilal, he'll get a fight against Colby, in my opinion, or Islam or whatever. There's a lot of fights to make with Colby winning that a fight against Edwards and Kamaru beating Bilal. But minus Kamaru, right? If you lose to Kamaru, I think Shavkat beating Wonderboy would surpass you, right? So that's 2 guys. I think even Gilbert coming back next year and getting a win against whoever would probably make it. Even though Bilal beat him, Gilbert was still super active. He's fought guys like Khamzat. He's fought in respectively the best of the best in some right. I think he would still surpass Bilal. Bilal is losing a lot if he loses a fight to Kamaru Usman. And it would make a lot more sense, right? If Kamaru can get a win against, I don't know, another contender right now. I don't know, just any high contender in that division. If Bilal could somehow, if Bilal's best chance of fighting for the belt is if he sits out right now. Because I would really, I mean, he only fought once this year. But if he sits out and Edwards beats Colby, because if Edwards beats Colby, that fight's going to happen. Bilal and Edwards 2 is going to happen. But if Colby wins that fight, there's no shot Bilal is fighting for the belt. So we better pray Edwards wins that fight. And yeah, that's his best chance of becoming champion right now. But look, and I know this is this is not a good comparison between the two. But, and again, a lot of people are going to be like, what are you saying? Sean O'Malley sat out. And I know the 2 names are, you can't compare the 2 because Sean O'Malley is 37,000 times the star Bilal Muhammad is in the UFC. I will say that. Point is,
37.
I don't know. I just threw a number out there. You could use any number you want. Point is, Sean O'Malley won a fight against Peter Yan, and I actually watched that fight recently. I don't really understand how Sean O'Malley won that fight, and I like O'Malley a lot.
No, I remember watching it live.
That second round was obviously all Yan, and I still think that first round was Yan. The third round, you could have made an argument for O'Malley. You know what? I'll even be generous. I'll give O'Malley that third round, but in my opinion, there's no way he won that fight 2 rounds to 1. That's just me though. But we're not here to talk about that fight. He won a controversial fight against Peter Yan, who was a former champion, and then he sat out for almost a year, and he fought Aljamain and won the belt. But he sat out when Merab, I know he was in his relationship with Aljamain. I don't know how that currently is going. He could have fought for the belt. There's other guys who could have fought for the belt, and O'Malley got it because of his name. So I wouldn't say Bilal is necessarily. I mean, he is kind of sitting out at this point because he only fought once this year. But I don't know what other fight there was for him to make. He shouldn't have been fighting down to the rankings. And, obviously, Kamaru was taking some time off. So that is the only fight for him to make that isn't Edwards. But, yeah, man, I don't know. I need to catch my breath because I'm about to pass out because I spit too many words at too quick of a time frame. I think Bilal's best move, though, is to wait and to fight. And he's really taking a risk here if he waits because he's not fighting Colby if Colby wins. Colby is fighting somebody that's not named Bilal Muhammad. So
you think that Colby passes him up and that the UFC allows him to just duck a fight with Bilal?
UFC doesn't like Bilal. We don't know this.
Oh,
and I think
I
if Colby wins against Edwards and Islam wins against Charles, I mean, those are 2. I know people don't think he beat Volk. He beat Volk, and he beat Volk. Now, I wouldn't say super decisively, but I don't think there's a huge argument that he beat Volk. So he already beat Volk, who's probably on track to being the best featherweight of all time. And he beat a guy in Charles Oliveira, who is top 2, top 3 lightweights of all time. So those are 2 huge legacy wins. And especially if he beats Oliveira again. I'm not a big fan of people fighting up for the belt right after they win the belt, personally. I think you should defend it a couple of times in your respective weight class. And then maybe we'll go on from there. But to just win the belt, unless you're Conor McGregor, because Conor McGregor did it. He never defended either belt, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know that. And he became a double champ. Nobody is Conor McGregor. So get that illusion out of your head. If Conor McGregor, Jesus Lord, if Islam could beat Oliveira though that's 2 defenses in his weight class against, arguably some of the greatest of all times in their respective weight class. That doesn't happen often. He, in my opinion, could deserve a fight against Colby Covington at 170, and there'd be a large buildup for that fight. That would make sense. So I think Islam would surpass Bilal, and Islam isn't even a 50. He isn't even a welterweight. So Bilal, like I said, he needs to hope. He needs to pray that Edwards takes care of business on December 16th. Because if he doesn't, he's gonna probably have to fight Kamaru Usman, in my opinion, or he's gonna be waiting a while for that belt. Poor guy.
Yeah, but I really see. I just can't see unless like this Edwards fight is one of those that are like an all-time great, very close fight, and then it warrants an immediate rematch.
Yeah.
I mean I can't. I just can't see Colby being able to duck Belil at that point. I think that there'll be enough of they'll have to come up with some sort of storyline narrative twist in some way so that fight is appealing to the fight fans and gets them. I don't know, maybe it doesn't headline a pay-per-view, maybe it's one of those double championship cards, but I just can't see a reality where Colby can duck him. I mean, I think the only fight for Colby would be, I mean, maybe the trilogy with Usman, but that doesn't really make sense because Usman wouldn't be deserving of that shot. So
it wouldn't be deserving unless he beats Bilal.
Yes.
But no, and you know what, Colby, and we'll move on to the next topic in a second. Yeah. But Colby could do what Edwards kind of did. That fight could have happened between Colby and Covington weighed in as the backup at 286. So he obviously was in shape to fight. That fight could have happened when Aspinall fight Tibora July 2nd of this past summer, and that would have made sense for in a London card. But obviously that fight between Edwards and Covington was bound to happen, but it kept getting postponed to the end of the year, and it needed to happen before the year ended, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why I just lost my train of thought for a second. Edwards, the way he postponed that fight with Covington, I don't know if he has the same leverage, but he could possibly postpone a fight with Wall until the middle of next year or something like that. And 170 is one of the most stagnant divisions in the UFC. We need to see some movement because these guys are getting up there in age, and there's so many young and hungry up and comers. We need to see the division rolling a little bit because it has a lot of potential, like 155, but it's not moving at the same pace 155 is moving at, or 145. So if Bilal does get a shot against Covington, it should happen in the first quarter of the year. No, first quarter from July to March. I don't even know my months. January to March.
You're good. I don't know about the first quarter. But I mean, at least
first third rather.
Some are the latest. But I definitely agree with that. But let's move on from the Belal Muhammad talk. Should he fight Kamaru Usman? I think that's something that is, entirely up to him. Got to weigh the pros and cons. Obviously, the cons I think outweigh the pros. But I mean, for Belal, he's in a tough spot where maybe he just has to take that risk and take that fight. And he has to be at least a little more confident considering the way Usman looked against Edwards in that second fight, looking like he's kind of slowing down and on the on the downward trajectory in his career, though still a very dangerous fighter nonetheless. But let's move on to Champ or Chump. And this is somebody that we're going to see in just a few weeks' time, and somebody that I feel we have not really talked about on the pod at all. So he was somebody that, let's get into my man, Magomed Ankalaev. Last time we saw him was back in December when he fought to a draw in the title fight against Jan Blachowicz. So he has never held the belt, but at number 2, the light heavyweight division, fighting Johnny Walker at UFC 294 on October 21st. Aiden, is Ankalaev a future champ or a chump?
He's another one I'm like 50-50 about, but I'll say champ. I don't know if it's going to happen. I mean, he's still young. He's like 30, 31 years old. And, we just had a 43-year-old light heavyweight champ. So if the division continues to be on the slump it's been on, he could be a champion in a few years. But, Pereira's pushing 36. I think he's 36 now, so he's not that young. We don't know how that fight's going to play out with Yeri, and Jamal Hill will be coming back next year, hopefully. So I think, with a win against Johnny Walker, who's on a 3-fight win streak, man. Walker's looked good recently. He obviously had that devastating knockout loss against Jamal Hill last year or 2 years ago. So that kind of set him back a little bit. But with the win against Johnny Walker, I think he'll probably fight for the belt next. He could wait to fight the end of next year if that's what he wants to do. Only because his last championship fight with Jan was a draw. He didn't lose. He drew the fight. That fight ended in a draw, rather. So there wouldn't really be much of an argument if he fought for the belt again after this fight against Walker. So I could see an Ankalaev beating a guy like Pereira or beating a guy like Yuri. So I will say champ. I'm not, again, I'm 50-50 on it, but if I had to bet, I'll say I'll become a champ. I don't think it'll happen though before the end of next year. I think he'll beat Yuri. So yeah, I think he'll beat Yuri, and then maybe he'll fight a guy like Jamal Hill. But if Jamal Hill beats Pereira, I think Jamal Hill will take care of business against Ankalaev, and then maybe down the road somewhere. But only because Ankalaev is so young and he has so much to work on still, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe, 2025, 26, he can be the light heavyweight champion. But I don't see it happening for at least another year and a half, 2 years.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. I think that I honestly, initially would lean towards champion just because, like you said, the division's kind of up there in age. I feel there's a lot of aging guys in that top 5 spot. But I'm gonna go with Chump simply because I think that the guys who are there and are young, I think could take care of business. I would like Jamal Hill when he comes back. I think that he would beat Ankalaev. I think Yuri Prochazka. Obviously, we'll have to see how he looks against Pereira, but him 100% healthy, I think I give him the edge over Ankalaev. And then I think Pereira would definitely, find a way to beat a guy like Ankalaev. I think Ankalaev could wrestle him. I think that's probably his biggest path to victory. I think if Pereira was champion and somehow, some way that fight ended up getting booked, that'd probably be his easiest shot towards the title. But I'm gonna go on a limb and say Chump. I mean, obviously only one loss in his entire career. He's been fantastic in his time in the UFC. The 5-year stretch that he's been in the organization.
Who's been in the UFC? Magomed's been 5 years.
Yeah. Since 2018, he made his debut in a fight night in Moscow and lost his he lost his first ever fight to Paul Craig right? via submission. That was his only loss in the UFC.
Or ever.
Or ever he's for that matter as well. Yeah, so he's somebody that, I mean, he's obviously been dominant when we've seen him. His last fight against Jan Blachowicz was extremely close. A draw, I think, was probably, I mean, you hate to have a draw. We talked about this with the Valentina Shevchenko and Grasso fight. You hate to see draws in a title fight, but I mean, that fight was pretty deserving of it. I didn't think either guy did enough to really, get the belt. And that was a terrible situation. But I'm going to go with champ for Ankalaev.
You just said Chump.
Oh, Chump. I meant Chump. I can't speak. I'm losing my train of thought here. Did not ingest a single thing today in terms of food wise, so that's probably where we're at right now. But Ankalaev, we're gonna go with Chump. I think, but if he's a champion within the next year or two, I could definitely see it, especially considering there's only really a few guys, as I mentioned, that I really feel would have the edge above him, and that I would feel confident saying that they would be able to beat him. And I don't think Johnny Walker is one of those guys. As much as I love Johnny Walker, great personality, great kickboxer, but I can't see him beating a guy like Ankalaev, especially because of how well-rounded Ankalaev is. Yeah. He's very good on the ground as well. So I think that I could very well see him taking that fight to the ground and, and really having his way with Johnny Walker. So I think that's something that could be advantageous for him and could lead to him getting a shot very soon.
I'd love to see Johnny Walker become champ. If he beats Ankalaev, I think he should fight for the belt.
Oh, if he beats Ankalaev, he has the personality where they could definitely push him to.
He would have to wait. I mean, Pereira. This is Walker's 3rd fight of the year. He's been active. He fought Smith. And he fought Craig at the beginning of the year. So he's been active this year. So I think he could afford to only fight once or maybe twice next year. But the problem is, right, if he beats Ankalaev, he'll get the shot at the belt. But Jamal Hill, since he relinquished the belt, he didn't lose the belt. He did the right thing. He was hurt. So he's allowing other guys to fight for the belt. So after, Jamal fights for the belt, Walker, in my opinion, would be the guaranteed next guy to fight. But we don't know when Jamal Hill is going to fight for the belt. Hopefully, unfortunately, with Yuri and Pereira, this fight's basically at the end of the year. So pending a 4 or 5 month hiatus between the next championship fight, we're looking at April, maybe May, for a fight with Jamal Hill and the winner of those two guys in November. And then, so Walker would probably have to wait till this time next year, most likely. I don't know. But since he's been active this year, I'm not opposed to him waiting till next year. But with the win over Ankalaev, that'd be 4 in a row, let him fight for the belt afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, with but when is Hill's timetable? Like,
I don't
I'm
even
trying to
know.
think of when he would return, because I feel like with that injury, it's going to be quite some time, maybe even later half of next
Well,
year.
if that's the case, he has to wait longer. Then let Walker fight right away. Either not
Yeah,
right. You know what I'm
or
saying?
the winner of Ankalaev Walker, I think naturally would be next there. But with that, let's get into some guess who.
Mm.
And it is time. Last week we officially broke up the knotted up tie that existed.
Got the lead, right?
Yeah, Aiden took the lead with could not get Blonde Brunson for my guess, but without further ado, let's get into it. And I'm gonna be honest, I may need a second. I don't have
No, I'm trying to think.
my guy right now off the top of my head here. Um I think I got it. I think I got it.
I'm trying to think about if I should be a D head or not and go hard. Nah, you know what? Only because he. Mm. But I'll think of somebody. You have your guy?
Yeah, I have.
All right, I'll
I
think of
got him.
somebody while you ask me.
All right. So we're gonna start with Aiden here. Aiden's record 5-2. He
5-2.
currently has the lead.
You're going 4-3, right?
Yeah, 4-3 for your boy here. So let's go into some guess who. Aiden, 10 questions, 30 seconds on the clock in between each. Let's talk some guess.
I hope it's not the person on your
Ooh.
screen because I accidentally just looked.
All right, well then I'm gonna have to switch. You're good. You're good. But oh my goodness.
I'll close my eyes.
Yeah, you're good.
I don't think
You're
I would have
good.
got that.
That's funny. I know. I know. I know. That's why I did it. I was like, this someone is definitely gonna slip your mind. All right. Well, we're gonna have to respect the honesty though. Respect the honesty.
Yeah.
I gotta extend a hand.
Appreciate it.
Respect the honesty. Could have played it off like you didn't see it and then got it in 3 and then been like, I'm him.
First question: is this fighter a strawweight in the UFC?
This fighter, a woman strawweight, ranked number 5, and I would have looked at my screen like, "Fuck you."
Let me think.
Shit. All right. Let me. You know what? Now I'm gonna give you somebody that I think is very difficult.
I promise you, whoever's on the screen, I'm not looking at.
All right, no, I believe you. I'll tilt the computer away so you won't be tempted. No, your screen. No, your screen's good. I'm just saying I'll move mine away.
All right.
But I got my man or woman, and I'm gonna say I think it's a bit more difficult than Andrade. That was the woman that was gonna be your original guess who. But without further ado, let's get into it. Guess who? Ain't it's time to shine. He has the lead. 10 questions, 30 seconds. Let's get into it.
Ready?
Yep, we're
All
ready.
right. And now I have to ask: is this fighter male or female?
This is not a yes or no question, so try again.
Okay. That doesn't count then?
No.
Okay.
But it's a yes or no question.
Does this fighter fight at 115 pounds?
Wait, so you're hold on. Let's take a time out here.
Wait, what?
So your first question was male or female. I said you have to be a yes or no question. You
Okay, all right, fine. Yeah, that is the yes or no question.
No, it's not.
Does this fight at 115 pounds? Yes or no?
No. But no, just the fact that you abandoned the whole male or female question. All right. So are you gonna what are we doing?
I'll word it fine. I'll word it. Don't worry. I'll word it.
Okay. I'm you're just confusing me here because you were like, I'm like, not a valid question, and then you just completely switched up. All
right.
Oh, you're good, bro. You're good. But all right, let's get into some guessing. Yes or no?
I'm not gonna get this because I don't know how to word it. I'll figure it out. Does this fighter, male or female, fight above 145 pounds?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm glad that passed.
One question in, baby. Let's do
it. All right. Does this fighter fight at or above 170?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I just have to get the weight class down, then I get to work. Does this fighter fight at 185?
Negative.
So 70 205 heavyweight. Does this fighter fight at heavyweight?
Yes.
All right, now we get to business.
There you go.
Is this fighter currently ranked?
Yes. Yes, they are.
All
Currently
right,
ranked.
not bad. Ranked heavyweight.
5 in. We got a ranked heavyweight. Off to a hot start. Hot start.
Is this fighter ranked 1 through 7?
Nope.
No. Okay.
No.
Pretty good with this. Is this fighter ranked 11 through 15?
Yes.
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 So I'm at 7. 3 questions.
So you have 3 questions/guesses left.
Fuck. My problem is I'm not that good. I'm not that good with the rankings at heavyweight.
Yeah, this is
All right, I'm gonna throw one name out there. Is this fighter Alexander Romanov?
nope.
Fuck. All right.
Nope.
Yeah.
2 left.
I'm not gonna lie.
I'm not gonna lie. This guy is tough. It's tough. I coming into today, I did not know he was ranked. That is
That's just
the
great.
one hit. Okay. That's just great. I can't wait for your
Is this
reaction.
fighter Marcos Rogerio de Lima?
No, it is
All right,
not.
so I got 2 guys. I just
One
need.
more.
I have 1 in 3 chance right now.
Yeah, so you knocked out the number 13 and 14th ranked, so you got 11, 12, and 15 to work with. Oh boy. Take your time. Take your time. Take your time.
I don't know. I
I
don't think he's. I still think he's
I
probably at number 10. So I'm gonna
I
just.
wouldn't know either. I
Huh?
wouldn't know either. Well, no, it's 11 through 15. So
No, I know, but I don't think he's. I don't know. I'm just throwing a name out there. Is this fighter Blaggy Imavov? Okay, the wrong weight class.
Who? I don't even know who that is. Who is that?
He was previously ranked at Blagoy Imavov or something like that.
Blagoy Imavov? No.
Who was it?
You can okay.
If it's Derek Lewis, I'm gonna lose
No,
my
no,
shit.
no, no. Martin Boudet.
The
The
fuck
number
is that?
15th ranked heavyweight.
That's his number 15. Who is this guy? Bro, what?
You just beat Josh Parson. I know Parson. I don't know.
How sick would it been if I guessed?
Yo, if you said Boudet, I would have freaked out. I'm not gonna lie.
Damn, but he set me
gave
up
you
for
a
failure.
tough
I
one.
should have checked the rankings this morning.
Dude, that was tough. That was a tough one. I'm not gonna lie. Mr. Boudet, Batty's nickname. He is currently, as a professional, 13-1 on a 12-fight win streak on his career, and he's somebody that we've.
Well,
just
I'm not
been thinking
mad at
about
myself because I didn't know who this Boudet was.
But Boudet, who?
I thought it was Blagay Imavov. He was previously ranked, but I think he's
Wait, what is
Blagoy, Blagoy.
Now I gotta find this guy. Blagay Imavov. All right, come on, website work. Blagay Imavov. Yeah, the bottom of heavyweight.
Ivanov. Yeah, he was ranked recently.
Trying to find this guy.
He lost to Alexander Romanov recently.
Okay, Blagay Imavov. Okay, yes, I see. I found.
What is he ranked at that website? Like 18?
On here, I don't even know if he's ranked on here. I'm still trying to find his name.
Maybe he retired.
Maybe I don't know.
And well, I gave it a shot.
Listen, no, not honestly, a valid guess if he was ranked, in top 15 or in that spot.
I already forgot the guy's name. What it was.
Boudet.
Buddhist. What?
Boudet.
Boudet the Buddhist.
Boudet the Buddhist.
All right, now I have to.
Now I'm done for. This is
you
my
might get
guy
it,
that
honestly.
I've never heard in my entire life, but I'll have myself ready.
You might get this. All right, I have the guy.
All right, let's do it. Guess who? My turn. Oh shoot, I forgot. I'm the one that's asking questions here. Is this fighter? I don't know where to go here. Is this fighter active in the UFC?
No.
I knew it. I had a gut feeling this guy.
It's honestly, if you get this, I wouldn't be that surprised.
Has this fighter competed in the UFC in the last 2 years?
Yes.
Okay, so recent retiree of the UFC.
Max.
Did this fighter fight at or above 155?
Yes.
Okay, at or above 155. Did this fighter fight at or above 185?
No.
No. Oh, okay.
So what are you, 4 in?
70 or 55. Yeah, I'm 4 in. Um, did this fighter ever challenge for the belt?
Yes. No, actually, no.
No, never challenged for the belt. 170 and 55 retired in the last 2 years. Was this fighter ever ranked in the top 5 in their UFC career?
No.
No,
No, that I can say with certainty.
no, never ranked.
So
in
was
the
that 5 or
top
6?
5. This is that was my sixth.
So you have
Sixth question.
4.
So I have 4 left to go. A 170 or 55 are never sure that never really top 5. Hmm. Wow. Hmm. This is tough. I really don't. I'm trying to think of guys.
Might have to start putting guesses.
Yeah, man. Hmm. Has I guess I'll now on the weight class. Did this fighter compete at 155 pounds?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So 155 pounder who's
All right, and
really
you
a
won't get it
top
if I don't
five
say
fighter.
this. He competed in both.
Okay. All right.
I'm not gonna
That's
screw you because then you wouldn't have got it.
that's fair. That's fair. That's a respectable information drop there. Um
Right. So you got 3
yeah, 3
guesses
more.
or questions.
Top 5. Now we're top 5, man. I'm trying to think of guys who are like notable names who retired or not great. I mean, I guess I'll narrow it down. Has this fighter fought within the last year?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay, so
So you
recent
got 2 guesses or questions.
recent retiree. Shoot, man. I fought at both 55 and 70. See, I see. I feel like Masvidal was top 5 and challenged for the title, so that's not him. Man,
He was tough.
I'm really blanking. I'm really blanking. Man, I don't even. Who recently tired at 55 or 70? Uh, man, I guess I'll ask before I get into a guess. Was this fighter ever ranked in their UFC career? At the
Yes.
very least. Okay.
Yes. All right. So now you got to guess.
So he was ranked. Now I gotta guess. Who the heck am I guessing? Is the question, man. 155 or 70 pounder. That was never a top 5 guy. Never challenged for a belt.
But never challenged for the belt, the undisputed belt. And I just gave it away if you don't get this.
Wait, so challenge for an interim belt? Oh boy.
You're pushing 30 seconds.
Oh yeah, this might be a shot clock violation. Oh my goodness.
Just throw a name out there, Joe.
I literally have no idea. I think I'm gonna take another shot clock then. This is tough.
No, I'm not. I'm refusing, but I can't give you all the time in the world.
I know, bro.
I do have class.
I know. he doesn't get a move on you. Oh my gosh. Who the heck challenged for an interim belt? Oh my goodness. Is it Kevin Lee? Hey,
No, I gave it away. No, I see. I gotta shut my fucking mouth because I gave it away and I told you that.
No. Oh, the interim belt was the one that helped me. Wow.
Bro, I gave you way too
No,
many clues,
yeah,
bro.
because
I felt bad. I had to tell you he was at 55 or 70.
That was a gift wrapped victory for Aiden there.
Because if I didn't tell you fought in both weight classes, no, I'm sorry, you wouldn't.
No way. That was
he's the only guy who competed for an interim belt that's inactive right now.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, there's no way he doesn't get this.
Yeah. No, I just forgot Kevin Lee exists, to be honest.
No, that's why I was like, dude, there's no way.
But shout out Kevin Lee for quite the interesting career. Definitely somebody I thought that could have had a lot better career if some things went his way, but unfortunately they did not. But we are now even on the guess who. Thanks to Aiden kind of gifting me the victory there. So thank you, Aiden. Appreciate it. Give me the side eye. But let's go and talk quickly. Yusuf Barbosa. This is next week's card. Not in 2 weeks. It is happening October 14th. And with the headliner, not much fights really Michelle Pereira was supposed to be on this card, but that fight got canceled.
Again?
I did not even know that. But not crazy names on the card. Jonathan Martinez versus Adrian Yanez is a great one at bantamweight. Oh, Pereira got a new opponent. Okay, Pereira is still fighting. He's fighting against Andre Petrosky. So we got Michelle Pereira in there, another exciting guy, and then Jennifer Maia versus Vivian Arajo. I've never watched Vivian fight. I know Jennifer Maia. I've seen her fight a bunch. Don't really need to see her fight that much more. And then Sadiq Youssef for Barbosa is a great matchup. I really like Youssef. I think Youssef's somebody who could very much, if he wasn't a featherweight and it wasn't Alexander Volkanovski holding the belt, I'd say he could be somebody who could talk champ or chump because he's only 30 years old and I think he's very much on the rise. But against a guy like Barbosa, I think it's going to be a great fight. I lean Youssef there, for sure. Aiden, what are your thoughts on that main event?
I lean Yusuf as well. It'd be nice to see Barboza win that fight because he did, he put up a great performance against a guy in Billy Quarantillo, but Billy was never ranked. So, it was good to see Edson show flashbacks of his old self because we all know Edson, he's a legend of the game. He might even be a Hall of Famer despite his 17-11 UFC record. He still might be a Hall of Famer. But a guy in Sadiq Youssef, he's taken some time off. When was his last fight? Oh, crap, I just had it.
Last fight, last October, so it's gonna be a little more than a year when he steps back into the octagon. A year and 2 weeks.
And his only loss in the UFC is the guy Arnold Allen via unanimous decision a little over 2 years ago. So I don't know where Sadiq is at right now as far as how, what kind of shape he's in and all that. Be honest with you, I've never really followed Sadiq like that. But just because he is the younger guy, Edson, despite that Quarantillo fight, he looked like he was starting to fall off just a little bit. I'm gonna put my chips on Sadiq Youssef, the young up and comer, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for Barbosa at 37 years old, definitely slowing down a little bit. He
looks great though.
He's always he's a freak athlete. He's always been fantastic, always been super quick and accurate. His kicks have always been vicious. But I like Youssef's a very well-rounded fighter. Won his last fight a year ago via round 1 submission. That was quick. But he's a guy that I think is very dangerous at featherweight, and I think could really get the job done against Barbosa in a real statement win. I think that it would be good for him to get a statement win in the organization and really show that he's deserving of fighting guys, higher in the ranking, because it's a really crowded featherweight mix. There's a lot of guys there, but a lot of guys, when you talk about top 5, and we mentioned before, that very challenged for the title or fought Max Holloway, who is, now kind of been the gatekeeper to that number 1 spot, to before you get to Volk. So I think that Youssef could really benefit from a big win here, and I think that a win against Barbosa would really in the main event spotlight would do him justice. But this is a fight that I could definitely see going all 5 rounds. I think that between Barbosa just having really, I think both guys have great cardio. And both guys really don't get tired, and especially the featherweights, they really don't get tired, and just in general. So I think it's going to be a 5-round war. I'd expect it to go to decision, and I'd expect it to be in Youssef's favor, but never count out the veteran in Edson Barbosa. But with that being said, unless anyone wants to break down any more of those fights, I'm good breaking down.
I was looking at the card. I don't know.
It's nothing crazy, really.
There was one fight on there. I think that's that card. Oh, maybe I'm looking too far ahead. Between Nurulston Ruzebedov and Kai Baralaho. Kai Chow or Cal Baralo, he's like 14-1 right now. He was asked for a top 15 guy, he didn't get it, but he's getting a guy in
This is this weekend?
Yeah, it should be on that card. Maybe I was looking at Blades and Almeida. So if it is, we'll talk about that another time. Maybe it is Blades and Almeida.
What was the name again? How? No, yeah, that is Blades Almeida.
All right, never mind. Then we'll talk about that when the time comes.
All right. Well, then with that will do it for MMA on the Island, episode 15. Thank you guys for tuning in once again. And before we go, we'll apologize. Been inactive on the socials. Life's been crazy, but I think I'm going to have some time to sit down, get some of these clips out for you guys so you guys can get more of that short form content, because I know that you're time of attention and your attention span does not go for a full hour, hour and a half, 2 hours that me and Ian like to talk MMA. So we'll get those clips out for you guys, and we'll talk next week because we're previewing next week, Aiden. UFC 294, baby.
Can't wait, baby.
UFC 294. And I am counting down the seconds till that fight card because I'm so freaking excited. But that's going to do it for us here. Episode 15 in the books. Be on the lookout for the socials. And be on the lookout for next week's episode because we're going to break down UFC 294 fight by fight. So thank you guys for tuning in as always. And we'll catch you guys next week. Peace out, folks. Take care.